It's the end of an era for Hollywood's boy genius, J.J. Abrams. All right, what's up, everybody? So, the latest in Hollywood news this week is that J.J. Abrams, very successful at one point, production company Bad Robot is shuttering all of its doors and offices in LA and moving to New York. Now, on the surface of it, you're like, oh, but it's not that big of a deal. He's just moving. But it actually is, because Hollywood is in LA. And so just being in the capital of movie making means something. You're direct in contact with studio execs, with screenwriters, with other producers, the talent, etc., etc. So moving to New York is getting away from all of that and having to set up shop in a completely different way and in a smaller scale, because it's New York compared to LA. And so it's kind of interesting that you can kind of track the rise and fall of one of the more famed Hollywood names that have come out in the last 30 years, I guess. And so let's start at the beginning really quick, because, he started out as a screenwriter and actually wrote some really good movies, particularly Forever Young with Mel Gibson and Regarding Henry with Harrison Ford. Which is one of Harrison Ford's best performances. I highly recommend you check it out. And then all of a sudden, he's getting this name. And then once this TV show Felicity came out with Kerry Russell, now he's really starting to pick up some steam. And with his production company Bad Robot being established, and then from Felicity he parlays that into other big TV shows, especially on network TV, particularly Lost and Alias. I was a huge fan of Lost in the beginning. And then, of course, my interest and appreciation for it petered out, as is the case with, I think, most people that watch that show. I really liked Alias with Jennifer Garner, but it also kind of, the last couple of seasons, it just kind of ran out of steam. It's almost like story ideas were gone at that point. But I don't think necessarily it's just the story ideas, because at this point he started, getting even more famous for his storytelling style. And there's a very famous TED Talk where he talks about it. He calls it the mystery box method, where in the beginning of the movie or the episode or whatever the case may be, he presents a mystery, and that hooks the audience, and then more mysteries get presented to keep the audience coming back. But the problem with the way he did it was he got so good at establishing the mystery, the resolution of those mysteries kind of fell by the wayside. At least the effort to deliver a really satisfying resolution. I think of, he directed Mission Impossible 3, which is, whatever you might think, I think it's okay. But there's this whole thing of the rabbit's foot, but it never gets explained what it is. You just know that it's important and that Tom Cruise has to get it out of the hands of bad guys, and it's fine. It was a little bit more grounded as far as the action is concerned, but the thing with J.J. Abrams as far as a director is concerned is I actually believe he's a bit overrated, excuse me. I just like what he does fine. Mission Impossible 3 is just fine. You have the Star Trek movie that he did. The Star Wars movie that he did, The Force Awakens, is fine. And then The Rise of Skywalker is just a bit of a dumpster fire, let's be honest, at this point, And so here's a guy that at some point would just stamp his name or the name of his production company on any particular project, be it a TV series or a movie or even a franchise, and then boom, they would open up, the money bags, pour it all over on the floor and say, take what you need. He had that ability to do so, and so now that it's all basically ended is kind of shocking to me. I mean, it wasn't as recently as maybe a couple of years ago he signed this giant $250 million production deal, and the only thing that has been produced from that deal is this canceled TV show called Duster. Exactly, I haven't watched it either, But that is, like I said, the rise and fall, And I guess what the particular question I have, the mystery I have, that I'm asking is, why did he have such cachet to begin with? Because if you even look at everything that he has done, it's good, but it never really achieved, at least in my eyes, great. He had great talent, Kerry Russell, James Garner, Jennifer Garner, and even to a certain point, Damon Lindelof, one of the writers and producers of Lost, which went on to do the Watchmen one season series on HBO, which I think is just absolutely amazing storytelling. I highly recommend you watch that. So he had a pretty good eye for talent, but as far as his own talent and capabilities, I don't think I'm alone in saying that he's a bit lacking. Especially when you think of, he was compared at one point to Steven Spielberg, and Steven Spielberg he is not. However, he tells relatively good stories. Maybe now that he's doing a little bit less, he can focus just as much on story resolution as establishing mystery. So that way he can have the best of both worlds. We'll see. Anyways, that's what I have to think about it. What about you guys? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Smash that like button, click subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.